My name is Jack Mitchell, and I used to think I had it all. I lived in a charming suburban neighborhood in Fairfax, Virginia, with my wife Emma and our two kids, Ethan and Lily. Fairfax was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where the summer barbecues brought neighbors together, and life felt like one long, comfortable routine. Emma and I met in college. She was studying literature, and I was working my way through an engineering degree. We clicked instantly, drawn together by our shared love of books and adventure. We married right after graduation and moved to Fairfax when I got a job offer at a local tech firm. Emma found a position teaching English at the high school, and for years, everything seemed perfect. But perfection is often a mask for underlying cracks. The first sign that something was wrong came one Friday evening. Emma had started working late more frequently, claiming she had to stay after school to grade papers or attend meetings. I believed her without question, never imagining there could be another reason. But on this particular Friday, when she came home, something felt off. She was distant, her mind clearly somewhere else. "Everything okay?" I asked as she unpacked her bag. "Just a lot on my mind," she replied, giving me a quick smile that didn't reach her eyes. I brushed it off, convincing myself it was just stress from work. But over the next few weeks, the late nights became more frequent, and her excuses more vague. Our conversations grew shorter, and the warmth that once defined our relationship started to fade. One evening, after putting Ethan and Lily to bed, I decided to confront her. She was sitting at the kitchen table, typing away on her laptop. I took a deep breath and sat down across from her. "Emma, is there something going on? You've been so distant lately." She looked up, startled, then quickly composed herself. "No, nothing's going on. Just a lot of work, you know how it is." But I didn't know. Emma loved her job, but she had always managed her workload well. I could feel the trust between us starting to erode, but I didn't push further that night. The breaking point came a few weeks later. It was a Saturday, and Emma had gone out to run some errands. I was tidying up the house when her phone buzzed on the counter. A message from someone named Chris. My heart pounded as I picked up the phone and read the message. "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." The room seemed to spin around me. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead as I scrolled through the messages. There were dozens of them, dating back months. Explicit, intimate messages that left no room for doubt. Emma was having an affair. When she came home, I was waiting for her in the living room. She saw the look on my face and knew instantly that I had found out. Her expression shifted from shock to guilt. "Jack, I can explain," she started, but I cut her off. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and betrayal. He's a colleague," she admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. "It started as just a friendship, but things got out of hand." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman I had loved and trusted for over a decade had been lying to me, living a double life. I felt a burning anger rise within me, but also a deep, aching sadness. "Why, Emma, why did you do this?" She broke down, sobbing. "I don't know, Jack. I was feeling trapped, overwhelmed by everything. Chris made me feel alive again." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stood up, unable to look at her. "I need some time to think," I said, my voice cold and distant. "You need to leave." Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. She packed a bag and left, leaving me alone in the house that suddenly felt empty and hollow. Over the next few days, I went through a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. I tried to keep things as normal as possible for Ethan and Lily, who were too young to understand what was happening. But inside, I was falling apart. Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. I took some time off work to process everything. I met with a lawyer to discuss my options, and he advised me to document everything and to start thinking about the future. The idea of divorce felt like a dagger to the heart, but I couldn't see any other way forward. Emma tried to reach out several times, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to her. I needed space to figure out what to do next. I confided in a few close friends who offered their support and sympathy. They were as shocked as I was, having always seen Emma and me as the perfect couple. One night after putting the kids to bed, I sat down with a glass of whiskey and started to write. I needed to get my thoughts out, to make sense of the chaos in my mind. I wrote about our life together, the good times and the bad, trying to understand where things had gone wrong. The more I wrote, the clearer it became that this wasn't just about the affair. There had been problems simmering beneath the surface for a long time. Problems we had both ignored. Emma reached out again, asking to meet and talk things through. Reluctantly, I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe in town, and she looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. We sat down, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. "I'm sorry, Jack," she said finally, her voice trembling. "I never meant to hurt you." I nodded, taking a deep breath. "I know, but you did. And now we have to figure out what comes next." We talked for hours, going over everything that had happened. Emma admitted that she had been feeling lost and disconnected, but that was no excuse for what she had done. I told her about the pain and betrayal I felt, and how hard it was going to be to move past this. In the end, we both knew what needed to happen. The trust between us had been shattered, and there was no way to rebuild it. We decided to separate, to give each other space to heal and figure out our next steps. I moved into a small apartment nearby, close enough to be there for Ethan and Lily, but far enough to give Emma and me the distance we needed. The divorce process was painful and drawn out, but eventually, it was finalized. As I sit here now, in my new place, reflecting on everything that happened, I realize that this is not the end of my story. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where I have to rebuild my life and find a way to move forward. The pain is still there, and some days it feels overwhelming, but I'm learning to take it one day at a time. Emma and I will always share a connection because of our children, but our marriage is over, and while it hurts to say goodbye to the life we built together, I know that it's the right thing to do. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that lead to the greatest growth. And so, I take a deep breath and step into the unknown, ready to face whatever comes next. As the weeks turned into months, I slowly began to adjust to my new reality. Living alone was strange at first, but it gave me the space I needed to process everything that had happened. I threw myself into work, taking on new projects and responsibilities to keep my mind occupied. It helped, but there were still moments when the pain of Emma's betrayal would hit me like a tidal wave. Ethan and Lily were my anchors during this time. They were young, but kids are perceptive. They knew something was wrong, even if they didn't fully understand what. I made sure to spend as much time with them as possible, taking them to the park, helping with their homework, and just being there for them. They needed stability, and I was determined to provide it. Emma and I worked out a co-parenting arrangement that allowed both of us to be involved in their lives. It wasn't easy at first, but we managed to find a rhythm that worked. The kids adapted better than I expected, and seeing them happy helped ease some of the pain. One evening, after dropping Ethan and Lily off at Emma's place, I decided to go for a walk. Fairfax had always been a peaceful town, and walking through its quiet streets helped clear my mind. As I strolled past familiar houses and parks, I found myself reflecting on how much had changed in such a short time. I ran into an old friend, Mark, who lived just a few blocks away. We hadn't seen each other much since college, but he had heard about the divorce and reached out. He invited me over for a beer, and I gladly accepted. It felt good to reconnect with someone who knew me well, and who could offer some perspective. As we sat on his porch, drinking and catching up, I opened up about everything that had happened. Mark listened patiently, offering words of comfort and advice. He had been through a tough breakup himself a few years back, and knew how hard it could be to move on. "You'll get through this, Jack," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "It won't be easy, but you're stronger than you think." His words stayed with me, giving me a sense of hope that I hadn't felt in a long time. I realized that I needed to start focusing on myself, to find out who I was outside of my marriage. I decided to take up running again, something I had always enjoyed but had let slip in recent years. It became my therapy, a way to clear my mind and push through the pain. I also started attending a support group for divorced men. It was a bit awkward at first, but hearing other people's stories helped me feel less alone. We shared our struggles and triumphs, offering each other support and encouragement. It was a reminder that life goes on, even after the hardest of times. One evening, after a particularly tough session, I decided to visit a local bookstore. Reading had always been a passion of mine, and I found solace in the pages of a good book. As I browsed the shelves, I came across a novel by an author I hadn't read in years. It was one of Emma's favorites, and for a moment, I felt a pang of sadness. But then I reminded myself that this was my journey now, and I needed to find my own path. I bought the book and spent the weekend engrossed in its story. It was a welcome distraction and reminded me of the joy that reading could bring. It also made me realize that I needed to start doing more things that made me happy, to rediscover the parts of myself that I had lost over the years. Slowly but surely, I began to rebuild my life. I reconnected with old friends, took up new hobbies, and even started dating again. It was a daunting prospect, but I knew that I couldn't let my past define my future. I met some wonderful people along the way, each one helping me heal a little bit more. Emma and I continued to co-parent effectively, and over time, our interactions became less strained. We would never be the same, but we had found a way to coexist for the sake of our children. It was a small victory, but a significant one. As I sit here now, looking back on the past year, I realize how far I've come. The pain of Emma's betrayal is still there, but it's no longer the defining feature of my life. I've learned to accept what happened and to forgive, not just Emma, but myself as well. I made mistakes too, and it's only through acknowledging them that I can truly move forward. Months turned into a year, and my life continued to evolve. By this point, I had settled into a new routine, one that was entirely my own. I still saw Ethan and Lily regularly, and our bond grew stronger with each passing day. They were my greatest source of joy and motivation, and being a good father to them became my top priority. One Saturday morning, while I was out for a run, I saw a for sale sign on a charming little house in the neighborhood. It had a small garden and a porch that seemed perfect for lazy summer evenings. Something about the place called to me, and I found myself wondering if it could be the fresh start I needed. After talking it over with my realtor and securing a mortgage, I decided to buy the house. Moving in felt like turning a new page in my life. The house needed some work, but I welcomed the distraction. I spent weekends painting walls, fixing up the garden, and making the place feel like home. It was therapeutic, a way to create something beautiful out of the chaos that had been my life. Emma and I continued to navigate our co-parenting arrangement with as much grace as we could muster. There were still moments of tension, but we had both accepted our new reality. One evening, after dropping the kids off at her place, she invited me in for a cup of coffee. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where so many difficult conversations had taken place. But this time, the atmosphere was different. There was a sense of peace between us, a mutual understanding that we were doing our best for our children. "How are you, Jack?" she asked, her voice soft and sincere. "I'm doing okay," I replied, and for the first time in a long while, I meant it. "How about you?" She smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm getting there. It's been a hard road, but I'm trying to move forward." We talked for a while, catching up on our lives and sharing updates about the kids. It was a reminder that despite everything, we still cared about each other in our own way. As I left that night, I felt a sense of closure. The wounds were healing, and we were both finding our way. My work at the tech firm was going well, and I had recently been promoted to a senior position. It was a rewarding role that allowed me to take on new challenges and lead a talented team. I found a renewed sense of purpose in my career, and it helped me stay focused on the future. In my personal life, I had started dating again. I met a woman named Laura through a mutual friend. She was kind, intelligent, and had a wonderful sense of humor. We hit it off immediately, and our dates were filled with laughter and easy conversation. It was refreshing to connect with someone new, to feel that spark of excitement again. One evening, Laura and I were having dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant in town. As we talked about our lives and dreams, I realized how much I enjoyed her company. She was understanding about my past, and we both agreed to take things slow. "Jack, I really like you," she said, her eyes meeting mine. "But I know you've been through a lot. I don't want to rush anything." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I like you too, Laura, and I appreciate you being patient with me. I'm still figuring things out, but I really enjoy spending time with you." As our relationship developed, I found myself opening up more. Laura was supportive and compassionate, and she helped me see that it was possible to love again. She met Ethan and Lily, and they took to her immediately. It was important to me that they felt comfortable with her, and seeing them bond brought me a sense of peace. The seasons changed, and life continued to move forward. My new house felt like home, filled with laughter and memories. I hosted dinner parties, had friends over for barbecues, and even started a book club. It was a way to stay connected to my passions and to build a community around me. Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. The years rolled on, and life in Fairfax settled into a steady rhythm. Laura's business venture took off, and she found immense satisfaction in her work. I continued to thrive at my job, and our relationship blossomed. We moved in together, creating a blended household that felt full of love and laughter. Ethan and Lily adapted well to the changes. They adored Laura, and she became an important figure in their lives. We took family vacations, celebrated milestones, and built new traditions. It was a time of growth and healing, and I found myself feeling genuinely happy for the first time in years. Emma and I maintained a respectful relationship, co-parenting our children with as much cooperation as possible. There were occasional disagreements, but we always put Ethan and Lily first. I could see that she was also finding her way, and I was glad that we had both managed to move forward. One summer, Laura and I decided to take the kids on a road trip across the country. It was something I had always wanted to do, and it felt like the perfect opportunity to create lasting memories. We visited national parks, historic landmarks, and quirky small towns. It was an adventure filled with laughter, bonding, and the kind of experiences that bring people closer together. As we drove through the vast landscapes, I had plenty of time to reflect on how far I had come. The pain of Emma's betrayal had faded into the background, replaced by a sense of acceptance and peace. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up, and it felt solid and fulfilling. One evening, as we watched the sunset over the Grand Canyon, I felt a surge of gratitude. Laura stood beside me, her hand in mine, and Ethan and Lily were exploring the nearby rocks. It was a picture-perfect moment, the kind that made all the struggles worthwhile. "Thank you for being here, Laura," I said, my voice filled with emotion. "I couldn't have done this without you." She smiled, her eyes reflecting the golden hues of the sunset. "We're a team, Jack, and I'm grateful for every moment we share." The road trip brought us even closer, and when we returned to Fairfax, we felt more connected than ever. Our home was filled with souvenirs and photos, each one a reminder of the incredible journey we had shared. As the kids grew older, they started to ask more questions about the past. I decided to be honest with them, explaining in an age-appropriate way why their mom and I had divorced. It was a difficult conversation, but I believed it was important for them to understand. They deserved to know the truth, even if it was painful. Ethan, now a teenager, handled it with surprising maturity. "I get it, Dad. Sometimes things just don't work out, but I'm glad you and Mom are both happy now." Lily, who was younger, took a bit more time to process everything. But with Laura's support and my reassurance, she eventually came to terms with it. Seeing my children navigate these complex emotions made me realize how resilient they were. They had inherited a strength that would serve them well in life. The years continued to pass, and my life in Fairfax remained fulfilling. I had built a new family, one that was grounded in love, trust, and mutual respect. The scars from my past were still there, but they had faded, becoming part of the tapestry of my life. This is my story, and it's far from over. The future is still unwritten, and I know that there will be more challenges ahead, but I'm ready to face them, one step at a time.